All right, everybody, welcome to the Comets podcast, where today we have the infamous, the legendary Coach Couch. Now, if you didn't know about Coach Couch, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an alumni, whether you're a supporter, there's a lot to know about Coach Couch. He has been teaching for 45 or more years, something like that, right, Coach? He is also
at least that.
Yeah, at least that. He was a high school athletic director for 27 years, the girls' head varsity basketball coach at Bellarmine High School for 27 years, leading teams to consecutive league titles. I think there was 15, 2 CIF titles, 4 CIF runner-up titles, and 2 state runner-up titles. So, like, racking up the banners for basketball. He then went to collegiate world and coached the head women's basketball team at Pierce College, and then was also an international coach, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Australia for track and field, cross country, and basketball high school athletes. Then worked as a clinician for USA track and field, cross country certification programs, coached track and field for almost 10 years. And over his tenure of coaching, earned multiple Coach of the Year for San Fernando Valley in 93, and then 97 Coach of the Year for San Fernando Valley, the Amateur Athletic Foundation, Southern California Interscholastic Basketball Coaches Association. That was all 97. And then that year, the CIF Girls Basketball Champions with the 31-2 record. I'm curious about those 2 losses. And then not to mention CIF Boys Coach of the Year 92 and All Area Coach of the Year Track and Cross Country in 2016 and 2017. And there's probably more that I'm not getting to, but Coach Couch has now been with Sacred Heart High School for, this is his third year? Second? Oh my goodness.
Third year coming up.
Third year with Sacred Heart High School, and just doing a lot of amazing things. And so I just want to welcome Coach Couch to the podcast. Welcome, Coach Couch.
Well, thank you, Greg. Yeah, there's a lot, and I never know. I forget half of that stuff, but and I leave out half for sure. So
yeah,
it's been a long road.
Well, okay, the 31-2 record, like, what happened to those 2 losses? Like, what was it like, they glanced over the opponent and they were just like, beat you, or were these like solid teams that, you grew from? What happened to those 2 losses?
Well, those 2 losses, the first one was purposely, and it was in the beginning of the season. I had to solidify my team and bring them together. And as you know, there's always kids on the bench that think they should be playing more. And I let a young lady play to prove my point that we had to go with the best we can go with at all times. Unfortunately, we were playing another girl from CD High School, Michelle Greco, who's an all-time WNBA player, played at UCLA, stole the ball from her in the last few seconds of the game, and we lost that in December 1st. I'll never forget that date. The last loss was the state championship. So that's why I said we had 2 losses that year. That actually was the CIF record for season wins all the way up until Ventura broke it in 2013, I think it was. So
that's amazing. That is amazing. Well, I mean, we could talk about basketball forever, and there's some other things that actually I want to talk to you about and ask you about. You've been coaching for so long, and you continue to coach. What drew you into the world of coaching?
Well, mostly, like all athletes, I think, my dad was my inspiration. Back in the 60s, my dad was still playing semi-professional football, and me going there and listening to him. Also, he coached all of our little league teams that I played on with Willie Crawford, ex-Dodger, my dad was, and he inspired me to be a coach. I mean, he's my mentor. He's my inspiration um, to get into coaching because he was so good at it. He took all the local kids in Watts at that time and taught us sports and taught us how to live life through sports.
Wow, that's incredible. So then your dad coached you up until how far?
My dad coached me up until I got into junior high school, and that's when I left Little League baseball behind and started running and started to play basketball and stuff like that.
Now, what sports did you play? Did you play all of them? Which sports did you begin with, and then in high school and etc.?
Well, I loved all sports. I could play almost any sport, and fortunately, I had talent and the desire to do all the sports. And I started off with football, but immediately when I got into high school, my coaches there, which was Dan Beatty and Fred Scott, said, you got amazing talent in running. You should stick to running. And they actually banned me from the football team at Manual Arts High School. And I was a starting quarterback. And that's the best thing they could have ever done for me because the rest is history.
Wow. So you were the starting quarterback and they said, hey, look, sorry, you can't play football. You got to stick to running.
Yeah, anybody that knows Manual Arts in the 60s, we had great athletes pursuing multiple college careers. They had a couple of kids get injured in football. So the coaches there started to direct the kids in what they were best in. And I really appreciated that. It was I had to go home and tell my dad, who was playing semi-pro football, that I couldn't play anymore because the coaches were not going to let me on the team. He says, okay, it was a different time. He says, what did they say to you? He said, I should be in track and cross country. And he said, do what they want you to do. And that was it.
Wow.
I don't know if that would happen today.
Yeah, that sounds so far-fetched of what we might think could happen for athletes and parents these days. If you're a standout athlete and you're in one of these sports, sometimes we hear about the parents who are like, no, you got to stick with it. And then the kid doesn't want to do it, but their parents are like, you're going to stick it through. And, or another coach is trying to get them to play other, and then the parent says, no, you got to stick to this. Don't play that, or don't run that, that sport or whatever it is. So that's interesting that your dad in the sport of football, has his son that is the starting quarterback and then says, all right, well, your coaches say that, go ahead and follow them.
Well, you got to remember, it's the 60s was a different times, and I'm sure you're too young for that. And most minority families, Black families, were real strict in following the rules of school. And so if your teachers told you to do something, your coaches told you to do something, that's what you did. Of course it's different now, right?
Yeah, different times. I think there's some parents who are still like that. And at the same time, there's a lot of parents who may not be like that. Just depends on the parent.
Sure.
That's interesting. Very interesting. So you end up coaching and you find a lot of success. Over the years, what do you attribute your success to? What are some of the biggest keys that have helped you to become a successful coach?
Well, I always say that my success in coaching is the athletes that buy into the system. Any athlete that really buys in, and parents, and they want their kid to improve. It doesn't matter their talent level. It's just a matter the degree that they buy into the system. And if they want to get better, then I'm there for them. And that's what kept me in coaching all these years. I've had enough parents to buy into my coaching and my philosophy, and have desire for their kids to get better. That's it. That's what's keeping me there.
Yeah.
It's not, everybody thinks it's championships, but for me, it's always been about the individual development. And as long as we developed as an individual, I was satisfied. And of course, the championships will come along.
Yeah. I think that's key. Getting parents to buy in, getting the athletes to buy in is really important to be able to move forward. Have you had teams, parents that didn't buy in, and what was that like?
Well, throughout my career, there's been ups and downs, and uh, you always get parents that don't buy in or don't think that you're going the right direction. But I think you can't let them discourage you. You have to keep going in the direction you believe in. And that's where coaches develop their philosophy, I think. And that means you may not win a championship. You may not have a team of 30 kids. You only have 8 kids. But I think if you can stick it out, you can be successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we look at your bio, your experience, you have stuck it through 40 plus years for sure. So, in those many years of being able to coach athletes, you talked about player development. What have you noticed to be some of the biggest keys for athletes to be successful?
Well, I don't think it's changed since 1950, 1960, 1970, the 80s and 90s, or 2000, 2020. I think all kids need that inner drive. If they're going to be successful and they're willing to challenge themselves and have that, Mamba mentality, they will succeed. It's not all about talent. It is about having that attitude. And you see those kids rise to the top. And I think that's why I stay into coaching also, is I'm looking for that kid with that mentality. And you're going to have a great kid. And that's what I'm looking for all the time. Not so much the talented kid, but the kid with that inner drive. And you see it. You see it all the time. If you stay in coaching long enough, you'll understand it.
Yeah. So, you've had athletes that have gone through a lot of challenges and, that have had a lot of barriers to their success, whether it be in the classroom, on the field, on the court, etc. When you talk about that Mamba mentality, like what is it about that, or what are the traits that you say help them get through those difficult times to be able to succeed, whether it's in school, whether it's in sports, even in their families or in their general life?
Well, as coaches, we all kind of center around the sports mentality, but I center around the life mentality, because from the day I started preaching that life is a sport. It's full of competitions. You go out and you get that job, that first interview, and guess what? You have to compete with all the other candidates. You want to go to the best college here in the United States, and guess what? You got to compete with all those other freshmen. Learning to compete, you learn in sports, and you learn how to take those ups and downs. And that's what I think Mamba mentality is. I look at, I mentioned people like Bill Gates or, Steve Jobs, who, they all dropped out of school at one time, but now they were the richest men in the world at one time. You look at, you compare sports to life, and that's how I've lived my life, through sports. And I've learned a lot of lessons.
I mean, I like that analogy, because there's so much competition in life, and there's so many lessons to learn from sports. And
right.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits of being able to participate in sports, because there's a lot of analogies and metaphors that we can draw from sports and apply it to life. And competition is definitely one of them. When looking at competition these days, and especially at our school, sometimes it can be a little challenging to get athletes to be competitive. I mean, some of them have that drive in them. I get that. And then some of them, it's almost like, well, let me ask you, what do you do with the students that, or the athletes that aren't necessarily competitive? Like there's not that competitive drive within. How do you coach them? How do you help them to be competitive?
Well, I think that's why I stuck with cross country and track and field, because you can take athletes from literally zero talent. Most of the other sports are skill based. You've got to repetition, and learn those skills. But with a little bit of success, where I start off as a 15-minute mile person and I move to a 13-minute mile pace, you honor that success. They see that, and kids want to have success. No matter what they do, they want that success. And that's not winning, it's success. I think we get tied up with success as being winning all the time, but personal success is probably more important than just the winning numbers.
Yeah, that's huge. I love how you said that, because sometimes as educators, and you know this, we try to find out how to motivate, students to do well. We try to motivate athletes how to do better. Parents are always asking, how do I get my son or daughter to be motivated? Teachers, they'll ask, how do I get this student to be motivated? And what you said, I think, is huge. It's a huge key, because I know from my experience, when I experience success, it drives motivation. Like, oh, I get a little taste of that. And I'm like, I want some more. Like, that felt good. That tasted good. I want a little more. And that kind of pushes me to try a little harder, to compete a little more. And so I can really appreciate how you said that, having that success can drive motivation and hard work and competition.
When I was in the classroom, I always go classrooms and sports, they're hand in hand. And if I had a failing student, it was about me. I had to make sure that student had success. So there might be one test or quiz that I knew that everyone knew all the answers. And I would give that as a quiz. And so everybody had success, even that failing student. And that's what they're looking for. If they're constantly getting all the answers wrong, then they're not experiencing that success. So you got to figure out, okay, I can give a little bit and make sure they have success.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, you've coached a lot of athletes, a lot of different type of athletes as well, in different sports. And as you look now, to where you're at, what are the messages that you're continuing, or that you're now, whether they're new messages that you send to your teams so that they can learn the lessons that you hope every athlete gets as they get Coach Couch as their coach?
Well, what you have to look for is the moment. You don't want to try to teach a lesson when the barriers are up. You want to find that spot where kids are more receptive to what you have to say. And in today's kids, it's, you have to pick that moment, because kids put up barriers also where they don't listen. But as soon as you can do that, you need to give them as much as they are willing to take, and get your message through. And believe me, it sinks in. And that's been one of my fortes, that I was able to do that with great athletes. I was able to do that with average athletes. I was able to do that with average students. You get your message in when you can, but be focused on your message. That kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, with all the athletes that you've coached, those that come back and say, hey, Coach Couch, I really appreciate, you coaching me, because this is what I learned. What are some of those things that you're You feel a sense of gratitude and pride in that, like, hey, these former athletes have said this. What are those things?
Well, I probably can't pick any one athlete or any one thing, because believe me when I say this, my biggest reward was not all the championships, all the accolades that my colleague might have gave me, coach of the year, what have you. It's when you see an athlete that you had 30 years ago, or you hear from an athlete that you had 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever the distance is, or the time is, that they're successful. That means I got through. And I've had kids say, coach, I owe everything to you. You put me on the right track. And that's a huge one. I remember I used to, I hear your voice at night telling me you can't do this. That means I left impression, and I'm always trying to leave an impression. I have a kid right now that was deported in 1975 from Belgium High School. His parents were deported to Mexico at that time through immigration. And I speak to that athlete, that person, every year. He calls me. Wow. And we still have contact. And he was not my best runner. Matter of fact, I call him Chug-a-lug. I don't think I can get away with that now. But, we had a close relationship, and he calls me and he says, Coach, I remember everything you taught me. And that's, as you know, 40 years ago. So, those are the ones, those success stories. He's managing a hotel in Mexico. You said he made it, or she made it, or what have you. I think that's more important than the wins and losses.
Yeah, that's so special to be able to be in contact with your former athletes, students, and to be able to see them, really move forward, which is really neat. It's a blessing for sure.
Oh, definitely.
So I want to transition here because you are our cross country and track and field coach, and cross is right around the corner here, about to start up. And so, tell us what's the state of the program? What is it looking like right now? What are you excited about?
Well, this is the first full year that most of the kids that are my top runners have only been trained by me. So they have my mentality, work ethics, and whole bit. And hopefully we're going to win our 10th league title. I have another nemesis called coronavirus, but that's okay. We're going to get through it, and we're going to put the best team we can on the course this year. I really am impressed with the kids that are running right now and how they're improving. And as I said, I think we're going to do okay. I think we're going to be right where we need to be. But it's a turning point, not as for success, but different ideas from the previous coaches, and still trying to have parents buy in the whole bit.
Yeah. What are some of the big improvements? What are some of the great things that are happening right now?
Well, for example, we have a young lady that finished, Brianna, finished 9th last year in the league finals, and I think she has a chance to win it this year. She's improved over 2 minutes from last year. She's working hard. She has that mentality that, work kind of mentality, and she's doing well. And of course, we have the girl that finished second in the league last year, Mariana, who's running well too. She's buying in, and I love it. I love that she's starting to say, I can do more. And one of the amazing improvements, a girl that was not even on our radar to be in our top 10 last year, was Sophia Roca. She's running right behind Mariana, and I'm saying, boy, this girl is really improving. So I'm real happy, and I won't even talk about the other kids that last year we had a restriction. Kids ran over 40 would not be included in the team score. Well, Nikki Gamboa was not included in our team score a lot. Well, I'm here to tell you, she's running 25, 26 this year. She's made drastic improvements.
That is,
and I'm looking at, I feel so proud of her as much as I do of my number one to my my last runner, and she has the work ethics to keep going. So that's what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes off to shave that much time off. Oh my goodness, it's huge.
She's got it going on, and there's a lot of success stories, and I'm, if we don't win the league, I'm still on cloud nine because of the success of those individuals.
Wow. That's so great to hear. I think, there's sometimes pressure for coaches to keep on winning, and it's like it's not a successful season unless they win. And it's just great to hear that, like, winning is, like what we're trying to do, and it's not the only thing that we're trying to do in the bigger scheme of things. Like, there's more to it, and that's what I really hear from you, Coach Couch, is that, hey, like, we want to do our best because, like, yeah, we want to be at the top. And it's not only about that, because so many times I think today's sports, especially with professional and now in college, it's like it's all about getting the dub. It's all about getting the win at all costs. And just it's great and it's refreshing to hear that from you, that it's not all about that.
And I think that's where a lot of coaches have, we've been forced into that kind of thinking that, it's all about the W's, especially at the higher levels, because we're watching more because of media. Well, yes, they have to win because of their jobs. College, they have to win because of their jobs. But I think we have to keep high school sports as high school sports. The kids have to learn that it's a part of their education. It's preparing them for the real world, the bigger picture, and the competition. You don't have to always win, but you better know how to lose. And once you learn that, you'll be successful. You'll learn that.
I love that. Well, Coach Couch, is there any, what advice would you give to young athletes, whether they're going out for your sport or any sport in particular? What would that be for you?
My advice for any young athlete, and I tell everyone this, because, although I coach cross country and track and field, I love all sports. I will challenge anyone in any sport because I think, with that mentality, I can play. I would tell kids, try as many sports as you can. If you're focusing at a young age on just one sport, you're really ready for burnout. You're setting yourself up. And I think that's what we do to our athletes. In today's high school environment, we're setting them up for burnout. We're setting them up for depression. We're setting them up for failure because, less than 1% get those college scholarships. Less than that plays pro, but everybody's going to live in the real world. So I think that we have to set them up to be successful in a real world environment and make sure they enjoy their high school careers. Whatever it is, whether it's volleyball, basketball, track and field, I just think they can do it. I still want all those kids to come out for track and cross country, even though I if they have talent in other sports, I applaud them. But, the basis of athletics is you got to be able to run up and down the court, around the field. You got to have quickness. So I feel like it's the best sport in high school.
Well, hey, Coach Couch, again, thanks for being here with us today. Really appreciate it. Everyone, stay posted because we got somebody else coming on next week. We're gonna drop that to you. But Coach Couch, again, thanks for being here with us. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
All right. Bye-bye.